What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favale coming at you with my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. We are on to the second part of our Eastern Conference exercise of going through one objective or goal or thing we're watching for every NBA team in the East as we go through the stretch run of the 23-24 NBA regular season. If you've not checked out the first part, we did the Atlanta Hawks through the Indiana Pacers. We are now going to do the Miami Heat through everyone's favorite team, the Washington Wizards. But first and foremost, Grant, how the heck are you?
I'm doing really well. I am now hyper conscious of mouth sounds because, as we were discussing at the end of the last episode, I don't know. Does anybody care about this? Verbal tics and weird things you do when talking really get highlighted if you podcast a lot. And so now I'm hyper conscious of I'm not going to make the sound, but you know the sound you make like after you've thought for a second when someone's asked you a question, and then it's like you purse your lips and then there's like a little pop sound before you talk.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I can't do it on command. I can't do it on laughing. Anyway, that's what I've been thinking about
Aren't you happy that I edit short so that I can comment on all of our, and to be fair, I don't call out just you, but I can comment on all of our just like weird little quirks.
I just did it. I did it again. It's such a subconscious thing. I don't know how you start talking from not talking without making that noise. I'm gonna have to change my whole life around.
We need a producer. If anyone wants to just come produce this show, just and edit all our stuff for us, make our lives way easier, that'd be great.
And if you want to put it really impressively on your resume, you can say mouth sounds eliminator. It doesn't need to be, it's a very specific job title.
Mouth sounds eliminator sounds like you're a professional gagger or something like kidnappers or something. So maybe reword that.
Yeah, that's right. You're like subduing victims. That'll be your job. What are we talking about today, Dan?
The NBA.
I'm ill prepared for that. So we are on to the Miami Heat. This is the second half of our Eastern Conference. What should this loosely titled? What should each team's goal be down the stretch of the season? What should it try to accomplish? What questions does it need to answer? If you want to frame it that way. We've gone alphabetically. I made the mouth sound again. This is going to be possible. You have unlocked a terrible Pandora's box of self-consciousness. We're at the Miami Heat though. So, Dan, what is your issue for them, or something they need to get figured out, or what will you be focusing on for the Miami Heat?
It's twofold for me, and I only made it twofold because I don't want to oversimplify the first one. But could they beat a good fucking team? They've like. Yes, there was that volcanic eruption post-trade deadline, and then there was kind of that snake-bitten free fall. I know they're dealing and have dealt with a ton of injuries, but so have most teams at this point. As we record this, Grant, they have a 3-18 record against teams with a top 10 net rating. That's the 6th worst record against top 10 net rating teams. The only teams with a worse record all suck. It's Charlotte, Detroit, Portland, San Antonio, and Washington. That is terrible company to keep. And so I understand, Jimmy Butler's dealing with the right foot stuff, Kevin Love, the right heel issue, Tyler Hero. It feels like when is he going to come back? He just got that PRP injection in his right foot, doesn't have a timeline for return. But like this team needs some trademark victories if they want to recapture the magic we're all waiting for of them. Oh, it doesn't matter if they go through the play-in or as the 6th seed, they'll make the finals. Anyway, the thing I am sort of wondering, though, too, is do they need to kind of start thinking about fiddling with the starting lineup that they've already had to fiddle with? Again, as we're recording this, like the go-to lineup, if they're healthy-ish, because I know Butler's dealing with the right foot stuff. You have Butler, Bam, Nikola Jovic, Duncan Robinson, and Terry Rozier. I get the theory of having most of those players, especially without Kevin Love available in that lineup. That group still isn't taking nearly enough threes. It doesn't generate any rim pressure. I'm wondering if they kind of just need to lean into, like, can we, just put our 5 best players on the court who are actually healthy? And so if that's not Hero, it's probably Caleb Martin I'd rather have in there than Jaime Jaquez, or it's, if we don't trust either one of them, Caleb Martin as a playmaker, even Jaquez as a playmaker, but those two guys are going to come in and they'll do more for you on the offensive glass, at least, which is not something the Heat focus on, but maybe they could generate some second chance opportunities for you in ways that Nikola Jovic or Duncan Robinson really isn't right now. I will always defer to head coach Eric Spoelstra on
Sure.
just everything. But when you're the Heat, and I know it's not who starts, it's who closes, but there are 3 teams who have seen more games enter clutch time. Like the Heat just need to get off to good starts as early as possible and go from there. It's just the body count is dwindling. And so I understand that there, but like those are kind of the things I'm watching because look, 3-18 against teams with top 10 net ratings is pretty bad.
Yeah, the personnel issue, both brought on by injury and just the players that they choose to put on the floor, ties into what I'm focused on, which is the Heat. Just like maybe it'd be easier to beat some of these good teams if you could generate more clean, easy looks. And the Heat just do not specialize in that. They're 24th in rim accuracy. And when I looked this up earlier, they were 30th. They've skyrocketed up to 29th in rim attempt frequency, which to me is kind of the more important number. How often are you getting to the rim and getting shots off? Now, like, because it's the Heat, of course, this doesn't matter the same way it matters to other teams because they were 19th and 28th respectively last year and they made the finals. So like I don't know what we do with that. But I think it's fair to say that like, at least if the margins are thin and if you're hard up for scoring in general, which sometimes they are, getting to the basket is a good way to generate free throws at least and find, if you can't do anything else, get to the hole and maybe you get some easy buckets. Maybe that flips a couple of those close games. Maybe that gets you a win or two against good teams. It's just wild to me that like that's a glaring issue that I think would be setting off like alarm bells for tons of teams. I don't think the Heat care at all because they're just like, we'll figure it out. We'll make mid-rangers in the playoffs if that's what, is called for.
I will say it just feels different than even last year. And I don't know if that's just the injuries starting to mount, but I'm like, I'm not nearly as confident. And also just like there have just been, I know Jimmy Butler can flip that switch, but there have just been nights where he's not going to be, it doesn't seem like he's able to get to the basket at will like his. And I don't know what the answer necessarily is for this roster as currently constructed. And it's just sort of like, I think Tyler Hero's not weirdly important, maybe uniquely important to them because you need his tough shot making. And like they've almost tried to like bridge some of the gap by using Terry Rozier as kind of more of a driver, or is he going to be someone who's going to set screens for you where it's like he's maybe a little bit more of the Tyler Hero-esque player as well, where he can specialize in hitting threes off the catch, or he's going to hit some tough shots for you. I just don't know. The offense is, I don't want to say it's broken, but like the offense is just such a slog for them.
Yeah. It's interesting. We don't want to spend too long on each team here. We're trying to kind of breeze through, but like you said, you don't, right. The wishful thinking. You said you don't feel as confident in the Heat this year as last year. Like I'm asking because I don't remember going into the playoffs when they were a play-in team. If I felt like, oh, look out, like this Heat team, they're going to make a run. I
picked them to lose every single series they were in, all 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go.
I don't know. They have the benefit of the doubt now though, but like make some layups or get some layups. All right. That takes us to the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm curious what you have, because it feels like there's a big issue that I'm going to hit, but what should the Bucks goal in your opinion be going forward?
I think they need to do a better job of optimizing Damian Lillard inside the arc. That needs to be, look, everyone wants to focus on the defense. It's been a little bit better, at least passable, during the Doc Rivers era. And I think when you look at Dame, his season's been uneven and like the driving is there. He's at 13 drives per 36 minutes. That's lower from last season's 16, but he's playing with another superstar. Generally, it's a new team. It's within the same galaxy. It's not, miles beneath the surface. And they're just like functional blips like that happen. However, we have his 3-point shot has not been falling at the same clip. It's perked up a little bit as of late, but he's at under 50% from 2. And while that's in line with what he's done for his career, it's nowhere near the 57.4% of what he did last year, which we recognize was probably the best season of his career. But like, you want this when you're looking at the Bucks roster. I think they have the ability to open up the in-between and just getting to the basket more for him. Because again, he is driving. It's just the pathways aren't as clear. And like they've done, if his 3-point shot is perking up, I think they've done a better job of integrating him alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I started diving into what I think personally is wrong. And it's most of his minutes come beside two of Giannis, Brook Lopez, and Bobby Portis. That's unavoidable. It's meant to be a feature, not necessarily a bug. But when you're playing Lillard without Giannis, the vast majority of those minutes have come with both Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez. And I think we need to get to a point where it's okay, those lineups have fared well by and large. I think mostly on the back of the defense. Yes, they can still space the floor, but it's different when you're spacing the floor with two bigs versus, oh, we're playing with four, maybe it's one big, three shooters, and then there's Damian Lillard. And I would like to see them change up that look. Can we get to more Dame and just Bobby Portis combos, or can you get Lopez to pop off more screens for Damian Lillard as part of just Lopez, no Portis, no Giannis lineups? Can we even get to? And look, we haven't seen a ton of this. I think we've seen like 125 or 110 possessions of Damian Lillard, Giannis, and no bigs. I just think that you need to get to a point, especially when you're looking at the playoffs, that you want to optimize Damian Lillard from every level. And when his three-point shooting has been a little touch and go, I don't think the Bucks have done enough of that. And that's just something I'm watching for. And I guess the inspiration subconsciously, I thought about it as I was writing it, was they beat they beat the Clippers when they didn't have Giannis, right? And like, that's what the pathways were so open for Damian Lillard in that game. And he had a great night, or was that a matinee? I don't even really remember. But I remember watching it and thinking, wow, I'm not saying Giannis should come off the bench or something, but that's just something I kind of have brewing in the back of my mind.
Yeah, mine's I don't have a ton to add because I just was going to focus on the pick and roll chemistry specifically. It doesn't have to be pick and roll. It can be the 2-man game. It can be like some handoff stuff or whatever it is between Dame and Giannis. Like that just needs to be, like Doc Rivers said it. So the game that everybody keeps pointing to, because this, like, when are they going to run high volume pick and roll? Like, is it ever going to happen? Everybody points to this game against the Lakers on March 8th where there were 23 instances where Giannis set on ball screens for Dame. They lost that game. So like they, and there's a bunch, I think I probably cited some of these other numbers where, as a role guy, Giannis is like not as good as you'd think he'd be, and for the Bucks in general, don't do a lot of pick and roll anyway on the year. They're like 10th percentile in terms of scoring efficiency when the role guy is finishing. We talked about this last time a little bit, I think. But yeah, like that chemistry, and Doc Rivers, I think, is the right guy to be, to be faced with this particular issue, because Doc Rivers is a pick and roll spammer. Like, he will figure it out. And his quote after that loss was, I think this is really telling. This is from ESPN's Jamal Collier. He says, Doc said, listen, you want to win all these games, but that's the stuff that we're going to keep doing more and more until it becomes us. Like, he's very much committed to the idea of, if we're going anywhere, our offensive identity is Dame and Giannis interacting at the top of the arc with the ball. Like, that's just what the Bucks are going to have to be. And we haven't seen it be consistently successful yet. And we are what percentage, what are there, like 14 games left for a lot of teams, 15, somewhere in that neighborhood. So yeah, you pointed to the overall offensive and defensive numbers under Doc. Like, it's just that this has to be a thing for the Bucks, or their iffy defense. It's been better under Doc, but it's not going to hold up. So I think we're kind of got our eyes trained on the same thing there. Anything to add, or shall we move on to your New York Knicks?
Let's move on to your New York Knicks. I think they need to, and this is kind of a duh thing when you're looking at the injuries they're dealing with, OG Anunoby's elbow stuff cropping back up, and then Julius Randle. We don't know what's going on with his own shoulder, or when he's slated to return from the shoulder injury. But like, you need to figure out a way to make Alec Burks and or Bojan Bogdanovic matter. And I think that it's more likely to do that with Bojan Bogdanovic, just because Alec Burks is a rougher watch for me, even when Bojan Bogdanovic is playing poorly. And also Deuce McBride has been playing well enough that might just decide that you don't need Alec Burks. And yeah, your Golden State Warriors got absolutely fried.
I'm real familiar with the work of Deuce McBride, whatever the hell that was. That's not his normal work.
It is funny though, when it's like, this is not meant to compliment us, but when I was listening to a Warriors podcast afterwards, and they were talking about like, oh, we had a scrub like Deuce McBride burn us. Like Deuce McBride has like played some real NBA minutes at this point.
Yeah, no,
like,
Deuce McBride is good. He was really good against the Warriors. But like,
no, it wasn't
like,
Yeah.
It wasn't like this guy's never going to have another game like this. It was like, oh shit, Deuce McBride is having a good Deuce McBride game. Like that.
Right.
That's
And
really,
it was definitely the extreme, but it was
yeah.
just, it was funny to hear it talked about that way. So I look at Bojan Bogdanovic, and we've seen his minutes tick up a little bit more, and he has not looked great. And he doesn't give you rebounding, he doesn't give you defense, but like, you need to continue spacing the floor around Jalen Brunson, who is just like, has to work so fucking hard to get his baskets still.
Oh,
Like, even his easy ones just aren't freaking easy. And it's,
no.
and you have, maybe you don't have the personnel to make it as easy all the time. Like Dante DiVincenzo bombing away from three has helped a ton. I think the switch to Isaiah Hartenstein has made, well, not the switch, but like Mitchell Robinson's injuries almost helped Jalen Brunson a little bit in that regard. But like, do more. And here's, it's not just that. Do more than like, there's a lot of having Bojan Bogdanovic space defenses to the corner, which again has value. He's new to this team, but like, he can do more stuff that I don't think the Knicks have tried to utilize as much. And also, your offense will be better for it in the playoffs, because we don't know what Julius Randle is going to look like or whether he's even going to be playing. So give Bojan Bogdanovic those reps now where, okay, I'm not saying cost yourself a top 4 or top 3 seed, but like, you're going to be in the playoffs. Don't try and figure this stuff out on the fly in the postseason, or bury him to where Josh Hart is playing 49 minutes out of 48 a game. And you need to you're going to trust the players. I know Tim is going to gravitate towards the players that give you more defensively, and I understand that, but like, I'm actually of the point where if Julius Randle and OG Anunoby are going to be healthy at the same time, I actually want to see what this team looks like if you play OG, Julius Randle, Hartenstein, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Jalen Brunson together. Because yes, I think you have enough to insulate Bojan Bogdanovic defensively there, just between Hartenstein, OG, and even some of the assignments that Julius Randle just takes. He's not going to always perform well, but the fact that you could say, well, yeah, you just go guard Giannis. I want to see them get to that stuff. Julius Randle's not there. OG Anunoby's banged up. I recognize that. I really am of the mind that if you want to make a dent in the playoffs, if you want to reach the conference finals, I think you need Bojan Bogdanovic almost, unless you just trust that Julius Randle is going to be one healthy and have an A+ playoff performance. And I don't think you could trust either of those things.
No, I mean, that's the problem is it's hard to trust in almost anything in terms of the personnel as well as their performance, because like the injuries, like Anunoby again is out with the elbow, and it's like, I don't know if you saw this, but like the implication is that like he doesn't like playing through pain, and so he just doesn't do it, which was, that's, you don't see a lot of reports like that where it seems like a real shot being taken. But the reality is, so we have not seen and may not see Brunson, DiVincenzo, Anunoby, Randle, and Robinson share the floor. Have not seen that, obviously, because Anunoby showed up late via trade and Robinson was hurt. But if you take Robinson out of there, the other 4 guys have played 374 possessions. This was data from a few days ago. So it's not much higher than that. And that's nothing. So this is a team that was fundamentally remade at the trade deadline, that has had its entire front court hurt for like a huge chunk of the season. So like, it's not just, oh, the roster we came into the season with hasn't had time to gel. It's like, well, that roster and our new one also haven't had time to gel. So it's like, I hesitate to make it like a real huge issue that they need to fix, like yesterday, because I don't think they may climb to 3 in the East, and that would be great. But they
have like the 3rd best defense
right
over the past 2 months or whatever it is.
Yeah, second best in the league in the last 2 weeks for sure. Like their defense is fine. Like, unless McBride and Hart just like catch on fire.
Look, that's part of it too. Is like you need, and that would be where Burks comes in. Is like, yes, in the postseason you want to play them those minutes if you need to, fine. But there's people were sort of like, Josh Hart says he's okay with playing 48. So what's the big friggin' problem? Go fucking ask Luol Deng what the problem is.
Ask the guys whose careers ended early because they broke down. But I was going to say, like, if they fall to 5 and that just means they play Orlando without home court in the first round, I'm still going to take the Knicks in that series. I feel like,
Orlando games might be home games for the Knicks with all the New York.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. But like, I'll just take the team that has Jalen Brunson and not overcomplicate, and the second best defense in the league over a good chunk of the season. So, but like, to me, the goal is just like get as many of these guys back on the floor as possible. One, so we don't kill the 2 guys that are playing 50 minutes a night. We're just going to keep upping it. You said 49. I'm going to go 50. Like, we'll just eventually it'll be like 200 minutes a night.
We're going to get people in the comments like, you guys know there's only 48 minutes in a game, right?
What about overtime? Will Chamberlain once averaged over 48 minutes per game for a season. Did you know that?
That's what's wrong with players today. What happened to the game that I loved
Not
back when
willing
I
to give
wasn't
101%.
back, 3 full decades before I was born, back when I loved the game of basketball as it was.
No, but they got to get these guys healthy so they can see what they have, right? And not, run all these guys into the ground. Seems pretty straightforward
What
to
do
me.
you make of this? Was not planned on our outline, but I've seen some on a couple of and heard on a couple of respected podcasts, and it's also just a sentiment outside of New York. I think certain fans that Jalen Brunson's value, his fringe MVP case, or more so his All NBA case, is just inflated by all this dude does is play a ton of minutes and have
Bullshit.
volume.
You haven't seen Jalen Brunson play basketball, if that's your take. That guy is I think. So the things that you might say about Brunson that are really complimentary and true are the types of things you might say about a player who's not as good, which is he's relentless. He's super smart. He's crafty. He plays really hard. He makes big shots. Sorry if those are cliches that you might use to pump up a not so good player, but those are things he really does do in addition to all the numbers. He's just a really good all NBA caliber point guard. That's it.
The fact that he just all of a sudden turned into, on balance for the entire season, I know there's been some troughs lately, one of the most effective off the dribble 3-point shooters in the league. Right. We're just going to discount that.
Yeah, no, that guy's a stud. I have no knocks. Is Jalen Brunson my no notes player? I mean, I wish he were slightly better defensively. I have some notes. He can't be a no notes.
I don't kind of wish. I do think he has room to be a better passer. There are limitations with when you look at the level of traffic he faces, and he's kind of small. He's not going to have the same line of sight as a bunch of guys. But the fact that if you have an issue with his passing, if you have an issue, look, his biggest weakness defensively is not really even the motor so much as just his size.
Right. He can't do anything about that. So.
And he has an all NBA case despite all of that. So because I heard it multiple times from people who were it wasn't just fans of other teams. It made me kind of stop. It was just, it took me, it disarmed me. It's the way I would frame it.
No, well, rearm yourself because we moved to the Orlando Magic, who the Knicks are probably going to see in a playoff series coming up quite shortly here. What's the Magic's goal for you?
So I really want to just say shoot more threes, damn it. But they don't have the personnel to do so. Although shout out to Jalen Suggs for kind of ratcheting up his volume and being lights out from there. What I would like to see, and look, this is because people I think said, well, no one talks about the Magic unless it's something to criticize them. Since January 31st, only the Timberwolves are allowing fewer points per possession. And just 5 teams during that same quarter season span, we're talking about 22 games or 25 games or whatever it is. Just 5 teams have a better net rating overall. So the verdict there is, holy crap. What I would like to see from them on offense is to trim down the turnovers. This is definitely an easier said than done situation. And some of this stuff cannot be circumvented because it's ingrained into their DNA, where it's, yes, if you look at what Jamal Mosley does with their floor balance, the Magic actually space the floor. Just go watch a half court set. They space the floor.
Right.
Defenses don't care. And that's the issue. They're going to throw the blitzes at a Paolo Banchero. They're going to pack the paint. And that then lends itself to certain turnovers. And so you dig into the specific turnovers that they have. They have the 6th most So that is, we're just going to acknowledge that. And when you look at, okay, they don't really have a floor general. There's a lot of no point guard lineups, you could call it, depending on how you feel about Jalen Suggs, which is the right way to lean. You get the bad passes, but then you dig into what I would call the low hanging fruit. And that is, they are 6th in the most turnovers from travels on the season. And they are 3rd in stepping out of bounds turnovers. Let's course correct those. Let's get those, let's eradicate those from the diet, because that's going to give you more possessions. And the other thing that I think you could do is when you're seeing Franz Wagner or Jalen Suggs or Paolo Banchero, namely, trapped, let's get to the ball in more efficient spots. And I think Franz Wagner's done a lot better job of being in the right spot for those. Can we see more of that from the personnel? Because if you do that, this team is already a force to be reckoned with because of its defense, because it has some good top end players. But if you're able to clean up the stuff that you can actually clean up on the offensive end, it is not outside the realm of possibility. You're telling me they're going to be matched up with the Knicks. Maybe they're matched up with the Cavs. It's just, there is no team at this point that I would be, aside from the Celtics, that I would be shocked if they beat in a 7-game series.
Yeah. Their spacing is so good that it's illegal. You said they have great spacing. The reason it's so good is they're standing out of bounds. Maybe that's they got it. So slightly less spacing would be ideal on the sidelines in particular. I don't know if you gave the raw number, 26th in turnover rate.
And you know what's wild? During this stretch where they're 17-5 with the second best defense and top 6 net rating, they're 29th in turnover rate.
So more, turn it over more. Maybe
more frequently, at least relative to the league average at that point. And it's just,
no, I mean, again, they should try to be 30th if that helps the record. There's a good point. Reverse correlation.
That's a good point.
So mine is just, we could go any direction with the offense. You sort of have to focus there. The stat that like is hard for me to get over. So one of the things I was going to think about mentioning is like, who's the third, the goal should be figure out a third option. Like, who is it? Is it Suggs? It seems like it kind of could be Wendell Carter because he brings the spacing dimension and he has like a little more of an offensive bent than Suggs does. The fact is, like, this is just a collective personnel issue. Of their 7 most used 5-man units, none of them score at a rate above the league average or even at the league average. So it's like, at some point, you have to go all the way down. I'm trying to see. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you get all the way down to Cole Anthony, Joe Ingles, Franz, Jonathan Isaac, and Mo Wagner. That is the most used lineup Orlando has that scores at a rate above the league average, which seems like, okay, maybe that group.
I blame Caleb Houston.
So anyway, it may just be like that guy's not on this roster. And you got to lean on the defense and hope, you get to the foul line enough or make enough tough shots to survive, which is not the worst plan when you have a defense this good. And you can, conversely, compared to the offensive personnel you can put out there, you can just put good defensive player after good defensive player on the floor with this roster. So, but
it's been tough. I think they recognize everything you're saying too, just when you look at the way that they've kind of used Markelle Fultz since he came back from injury, which is sparingly. They're gonna because could that have been a guy? And it's like kind of trying to elevate Jalen Suggs to that. And even just the Cole Anthony's not hitting his threes recently, that's been tough on them. It's probably, if you had to pick who their third best offensive player is, I think it probably is Wendell Carter Jr., but I think Jalen Suggs make himself a case. And then you have Cole Anthony, of course.
Yeah, but Cole Anthony just hasn't made a shot this year. It feels like 31.8% from 3. Yeah, I think it should be Carter. Not only because like he's just a tick under 40% from deep, doesn't shoot enough, but it's like, I don't know. Is it premium spacing if it's that low volume, but from a center position, so it's more valuable? Like maybe more looks for him.
The issue with that though is the way that he might be most valuable on offense. It's hard to kind of accentuate with the way defenses are going to defend this team because of the lack of proven high volume shooting. Right? It kind of came back to, we had this discussion last week about could Markelle Fultz improve his value with post touches, and it's like maybe, but that's not happening in Orlando.
Right, like he will be. You won't even be able to see him in there. He'll be surrounded by so many defenders. Like that's just it's gonna. Yeah,
none of whom are probably defending him at that point.
This is why, as ridiculous as it sounds, like Klay Thompson for like a huge overpay in free agency would make a lot of sense. Or like that's why the Zach LaVine to Orlando thing was like, oh my God, don't do that. But like also maybe do that because
the one thing I would ask you is why. I've seen everyone talk about Klay Thompson. Why is he considered more gettable than Buddy Hield?
Yeah, right. I don't know. Yeah, this is a question for another podcast. But like, Klay's going to get a higher annual value contract than Buddy Hield, right? Like, if we're just talking about specialists now, like Klay Thompson, I'm still taking as my shooting specialist over Buddy Hield, aren't you? If that's all he's got to do, you're not.
No. But if that's all he has to do, but like, don't you want someone like Buddy Hield who can set screens and maybe keep the ball moving a little bit better? And I guess if you really trust that Klay can still lock up on certain nights, I kind of understand it there.
I do not. Well, you mentioned Bogdanovich for the Knicks. Like, I've never seen him look so quick as he did blowing by Klay Thompson over and over again against the Warriors the other night. Bogdanovich must have thought like, he's like, oh my God, what did I eat today? Why am I so? It's just like, man, I gotta.
Did he have Well, did he have roasted pumpkin or fish stew? Maybe that was.
Probably had fish stew and roasted pumpkin, and I don't know, like
That'll be for the
sauerkraut.
real ones who listened to the last podcast.
Yeah, right. Everybody else is like, what is wrong with you people? Let's move to the Sixers, who alphabetically, in fact, are next.
So,
What's their goal down the stretch here?
so I have prioritizing the long term. And what
Oh, interesting.
part of this, they've already done this when you look at their cap sheet. They can get upwards of 60 plus million in space while carrying Maxi's own cap hold. What I actually mean by this is Joel Embiid has apparently returned to practice. If this is a natural progression to play, fine, let it happen. If it's not, we need to table the urgency. They looked like they could maybe contend with anybody when he was healthy. What are the odds that one, it's still true with this version of Tobias Harris on the court and DeAnthony Melton injured? And then two, what does Joel Embiid look like once he comes back? I'm not saying, I will get into the second part of this in a second. I'm not saying that they should just, no, he shouldn't play. Like, we don't care about the season at all. You have natural urgency because you have Joel Embiid. But there's no reason to be like, well, he needs to come back, because even if he does, you're not winning a title this year. He's probably not going to look like himself this year. What are you actually accomplishing at that point? Now, there is something to accomplish at that point. And if Joel, again, if this is the natural progression to play from his meniscus injury, bring him back, because I would like to see, what does Buddy Hield and Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid look like? That then instructs how you're going to handle your cap sheet. Whereas, well, do we bring Buddy Hield back, or how invested are we in bringing Buddy Hield back? I would give anything to see, I don't care who the fifth member of this unit is, if DeAnthony Melton and Embiid can get healthy and we see them plus Hield plus Maxey, what type of damage does that unit do? And so it needs to be about optimizing what you're doing this summer into next season. And if that is one, holding Joel Embiid out for the rest of the year, so fucking be it. But more to that, if he's just going to come back, I really want to see them spam and try out everything that you could imagine functionally possible with Hield, Maxey, and Embiid, because they're going to have bigger fish in their sights. And I'm not saying we need to keep Buddy Hield instead of going after Paul George. You do both. Like, you can re-sign Buddy Hield and still have a max slot available, but I do want to see, well, like, what is the, like, Joel Embiid playing with Buddy Hield and Tyrese Maxey? That's a pair of shooters that he's never had in Philadelphia. So I want to see what that looks like. And the goal needs to be to spam that, which might be a duh moment, but it goes into do it at the expense of the long term. If you see certain lineups meshing or gelling better, you have to move past it, because you're not, yes, you are about this season, but you've telegraphed very clearly, even before the James Harden trade, that you're also not.
Yeah, it's a really rare situation where it's like the tension all year has been, we have an MVP in his prime, it's go time. But it's also like, I can't remember the last time that was the case, where also, beyond any doubt, the front office is like, but next year's really kind of the year. We're gonna just have a toe in like both pools, I guess, which is not a phrase, but you get the idea. I'm gonna go one farther. We really do align on this issue, but I'm just gonna say their goal should be to resist the urge to let Joel Embiid come back and play under any circumstances. And like, it's kind of just saying it differently, because you're saying, well, if it's the natural progression, then sure, come on back. Like, I'm saying Joel Embiid, under the best of circumstances, tends to break down in the playoffs. Like, that's a thing. And so what you're going to be asking him to do, even if like rehab's gone great, somehow he's back in shape, which is like, it's a knee injury. So he wasn't running for a long time.
And the other thing is, there's a difference between being in shape and being in game shape.
Sure. And like, I just don't see a scenario where, even if it is the natural progression, he's gotten through all the hallmark, whatever the checkpoints are that he needs to get through to be cleared. It's just like, I think he's going to be probably heavier. He's probably going to be more susceptible to injury, re-injury, or injury elsewhere. And again, like, what's the goal? Like, okay, if you can win a title with Joel Embiid, like, because he's an MVP and because he's that great, go for it. But like, what you're asking him to do is come back probably hobbled, certainly not in the kind of game shape you're talking about, and advance 2 rounds farther than he ever has. Like, this year now, with months off, like, forget it. Like, that's just the payoff. Is there a chance that he could lead them to a title? I guess. but the overwhelming odds are like that isn't going to happen. And the risk of like getting hurt again is just not worth this infinitesimally small chance of the reward. Like I just the it doesn't compute to me as like a sound decision. And it's hard because like, oh, player is healthy, player should play, right? You can get really simple that way. I just like combined with the fact that they're so clearly gunning for like probably Paul George or somebody else with all this cap space, or they're going to use it to trade. We have to always we've been blessed with the wisdom that you can use cap space to facilitate trade, so it's not just signing. Like this just isn't it. It's not the time. So just don't bring him. Don't bring him back. Don't play him. Just like you had a bad break and you've been gunning for next year anyway. So let's just try it again.
Do you ascribe any value, though, to kind of sort of what's happening in Memphis, where Brandon Clark's expected to come back? And the gap wouldn't be this long, but you bring him back because it's, well, not playing basketball for a year is a lot different than not playing basketball for 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you bring Joel Embiid back now, where it's okay, well, at least he'll have been back on the court, gotten his game legs under him, and you go rather than, oh, if we're just going to hold him out until next October, that's just such a long stretch to not have played competitive basketball.
Yeah, that's true. I think even that, if I'm doing like the risk reward calculus, I'd still rather give Embiid like twice the normal recovery time and then the summer to be back. Cause like, I don't know, this might be too bleak, but it's like, how many more shots are you going to get with him? You know, where he makes it through a season? Like we sort of haven't had one like ever. So the odds are probably long anyway, but like it just make it next year. Like next year has got to be all the eggs are in the 24-25 basket. There's just, it's, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't see the payoff potential if you try to bring him back this year. And like the downside is immense. Like what if he gets hurt again? Well, like and based on his track record, that seems like that's not an unreasonable possibility. All right. So that's the first one we've really kind of targeted the like almost exact same issue. Oh boy, Toronto Raptors are next. What are we going to say about the Toronto Raptors, Dan?
So, well, one, thoughts, good vibes to the Barrett family. RJ losing his younger brother. I still haven't seen an age, but if he's younger, RJ Barrett's super young. That's incredibly sad, tragic. So, sending good vibes, thoughts to them. So, what I have for them is, and this is tough now because Scotty Barnes is out indefinitely, Jakob Poeltl's out indefinitely, but let's map out the ideal fifth member of their core. And by that, I don't mean the who or even necessarily the how they get him, but the archetype that they need. And I think a lot of that, because we know about the leap that Scotty Barnes has already made, because we know what RJ Barrett has done in a more free-flowing offense that's going to help him get momentum and then get to the basket. Because you kind of know what you have in Jakob Poeltl. And by the way, I'm viewing their four core members as Jakob Poeltl, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and Scotty Barnes. To me, it feels like Emmanuel Quickley might direct this more than anyone else. And Samson Folk of Raptors Republican wrote about not this specific topic necessarily, but about the development of Emmanuel Quickley in Toronto, where he's now done, they're treating him like a lead guard because they have to. And he has shown some flashes where it's, like the live dribble, not picking up his dribble as much, being smarter with that. That's important. But you need to answer the question, not just because he's coming up on restricted free agency, do we view him as a lead guard to where Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, and then even what you get from RJ Barrett, that's enough just playmaking right there. If the answer is yes, it then simplifies your search. We know that their next guy needs to be a wing, but if Emmanuel Quickley is a lead guard, it increases the likelihood that the answer to what you want as your fifth core player is already on the roster. Could it be Gary Trent Jr., the north-south juice, what he does defensively? Could it be Grady Dick with the motion shooting, with the ability that he's kind of shown in flashes of what he's going to do on closeouts, the ball moving? He's positionally, he has good size for his position on defense. The fact that he doesn't cover or shouldn't cover star wings, that works against him. But if Emmanuel Quickley's a lead guard, you could then say, well, we need a wing who just defends and spaces the floor and doesn't need to do much else. Now, if Emmanuel Quickley is not lead guard material, that's going to complicate the search and make it much higher stakes. And so that's what you and it's almost, I'm not saying not having Scotty Barnes has been and will continue to be a blessing in disguise. I do think Emmanuel Quickley would be better. You have Kelly Olynyk there right now, but I think he actually would be better off with Jakob Poeltl in the lineup to help him run some stuff there, having that, traditional big, in addition to Kelly Olynyk. who's going to give you more space. But I think Jakob Poeltl is going to do more to open up spacing with screens for you. With Immanuel Quickley, now you know that you need to have the ball in his hands and figure all this stuff out. And so we're going to get even more volume on this. Can he come? And if he's going to make strides under less than ideal circumstances, where RJ Barrett's missing time right now because of the death of his younger brother, as he should, you're getting this information and it's valuable. But I still personally don't have the exact feel for what I want that fifth core player to be. And if you want to get into the discussion, well, I don't think Jakob Poeltl should be part of this core, and I don't think RJ Barrett's necessarily part of the core. The Raptors have decided that these four guys are the meat and potatoes of their core right now. So I'm trying to figure out what's the archetype that fits best. And that's what the Raptors need to determine and use the rest of this season to kind of decide.
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, one, that could extend to the guy they potentially pick with their first round pick if it doesn't convey to San Antonio. Like, that's on the table too. So you've got to be thinking like,
there's ways to get them. It's probably like they could have cap space this year if they choose, like 28 plus million, I think, even with Quickley's hold, or it's, do we need to get this guy via trade? So there's different mechanisms to get him, but for me, it's less of the who when you're talking about names and the how of more, I guess it's the what. What's their what? How's
right.
That
yeah. Forget what's your why. What's your what? So mine is, I don't know if it's a goal per se, because figuring out what Immanuel Quickley is worth is something that the market is just going to decide for them. But in terms of like what I'm interested in for them, I think, and like some of the things you touched on where like, well, what is he? Is he a lead guard? Is he not? Like, and then you're trying to answer like what he needs around him, depending on what the answer to that question is. All of that informs like, what is he worth? And that's a very practical question for the Raptors, because, you know, you did not trade for this guy to be a rental. Presumably you viewed him as, well, I don't know what, maybe he's your lead guard, maybe he's not, but you viewed him as an important piece of the next good iteration of your team. And so is it 5 for 135, which was a reported expectation of his? Like, I hope not. And I don't think so. But is it something closer to what the Knicks offered, which was like around 18 million a year reportedly? Like, you feel pretty good about that. But I'm very, very interested to see what, it's not like Toronto has like, oh, we're walking away. It's not like, that's not the situation.
They can't. I guess if they were just kind of like, they knew about OG Anunoby's health oddities more so than any other team, so they could, not that they would have viewed that as a sunk cost, but what you gave up or how you valued Immanuel Quickley in that trade over first round cost controlled equity, what is the number that would be your actual walk away number to where
that's what I mean. I don't think there can be one realistically. But like, you know, and like, look, you've got the dearth of teams around the league that are going to have I don't think Quickley is like who the Sixers have been waiting on, for example. And, you know, there's like the Pistons. If the Pistons threw him a max, like with that, just throw another guard in there.
For the folks at home, so his max would be from, and this is like just the starting salary, and maybe they care about the years element of it as well, but his max next season is projected to be at like 35.3 million.
Yeah.
So a 4-year max from an outside team would be 4 years and 151.6 million. Is there a team that you could see? We agree it's not the Sixers with Maxey there.
Well, I know Detroit's got 60 plus million. Somebody else that I can't remember now.
Would Orlando, if they could get to that number, consider it?
Oh, well, Orlando makes a hell of a lot more sense than Detroit or Philly. Because, I
say if Orlando could get to that number, and if they want, I'm pretty sure they could have like 60 plus million in cap space.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if he's a lead guard or a secondary guard. Like, he's still an upgrade offensively over whoever the Magic would play at either of those spots. Yeah. So I don't know. It's not a goal or a whatever that they can solve down the stretch of the season. And by the way, Quickley is also out for personal reasons with no timetable to return as of reports today. So like, maybe you don't even get to see him play that much down the stretch to get a better idea of what he's worth to you, or for him to like juice his value by playing really well. That's a fascinating free agency situation to me. Like, you can't walk away. You've got to decide on a number, and it's like, there are a couple teams out there looming that might really make things interesting.
Do you think if I set the over under at 31 million for him as an average annual salary?
Like, in terms of what I think he will get or what I think he should get?
What do you think he'll get? It's
So
tough
you're
because the Raptors could go through the 5th year.
right. I think that I think I think I would go under that number just because that seems I don't know. It used to be so
Very
much
high for
easier.
someone that if you're still not sure he's lead guard.
That's what right. Like if he's yeah, if he's a really great I think he's better than this, but if he's a really great first guy off the bench at either guard spot, like that's way too much, you know. But if he's I think he almost has to be if you're going to pay him that much, he has to be your lead ball handler like in the starting lineup and you got to feel great about that, right? Because I mean, I know the cap's going up, but you get to those into the 30s, it's
And
like you can't have a lot of questions about the guy if you're into the 30s.
the other thing too is this is stepping on this was what we just said. I just don't know where the mega offer sheet is coming from. I think Detroit or Orlando, they have the juice, the financial juice to do it. I just don't know. Orlando, that runs contrary to everything they've basically done. And then I guess Detroit's a wild card for sure. I thought about the Spurs, but they would need to create the cap room where it's like we need to undo that disastrous Zach Collins deal, or can we trade Keldon Johnson into someone's cap space? But like they're not really a team that maybe they would. As I'm just like, where's the Detroit feels like not the best fit, but most likely, and Orlando might actually be the best fit, but the least the least likely team to do it.
Yeah, Utah is projected to have a good chunk if they want to. I don't know. Keontae George is there, so they're set forever. Yeah, I mean OKC doesn't make a lot of sense there. Charlotte doesn't make. I mean, nah. I think you got the discount. Emmanuel Quickly and Trey Mann for Charlotte. Yeah, maybe that's just what it is. Like the big offer is not coming, so maybe Toronto can get into the mid-20s and put a cap on it.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be over 25 annually.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we got one team left. That is last and least the Washington Wizards.
So I have identify keepers from the Flyers that they have on the roster. And I actually have a list of my 5 favorite ones, one of whom is not a Flyer, but I do think he's coming up on a interesting flashpoint. But like they've been in experimental mode for quite some time. And now you have Bilal Coulibaly with the wrist injury. Then he obviously is dealing with a knee injury. Those sort of nudge them even further in that experimental direction. And so you're going to get a ton of information on some of these players. It's not going to be the most watchable basketball, but I think your goal is not to find another building block and read, because we all know there's that late season noise, which I
Yeah.
think Jalen Green might be the king of at this point, where it's like I just come on in like the latter quarter of a.
I can't wait to talk about Jalen Green when we do the West. I cannot wait.
So the names that I have to monitor here for them. So I'll go in reverse order. I think of who interests me the most. I have Corey Kispert, who's not a Flyer. He does more on offense, I think, than people understand, but he is extension eligible. And so just what is he worth to this team, if anything, in extension talks? And so that's why I'm sort of monitoring him. And he's going to have the ability to have more responsibility if he stays healthy because of the available personnel. They did sign. He was on their summer league team. He was drafted I think it was 42nd overall in 2023. Tristan Vukcevic. So not Vucevic, but Vukcevic, excuse me. So Tristan Vukcevic. I would like to see him play based off what I went back and watched from him in summer league. He flashed some nice outside touch and then like really good pinpoint passing. This team needs a big of the future. This is to say, like they have, especially with Marvin Bagley banged up right now. And like your other names are Rashawn Holmes on this roster. They have the ability to throw Vukcevic in there, and I'm hoping he makes his debut soon to see what he could do as a playmaker, just as the big man in their system. After him, do you know who's been like he's only played, I think I've seen him in a couple games, and I think he's only played in 6 or 7 on the season. I'm very intrigued by Jules Bernard. He's shown good patience, process, working on ball. He's 6'7", which is great size for the 2 or the 3. And he had this, I don't know if you saw any of that Celtics Wizards game the other night, and it was garbage time. So if you were watching, maybe you turn it off. He hit this like off the bounce above the break 3 in the face of, I don't remember if it was Al Horford, whoever it was. And it just made me like, oh, there might be something here. And so is this some guy that you should make sure is on the roster for next season? And then Jared Butler, there's something to be said about his shot making efficiency, and he's definitely not point guard of the future material, but the live dribble vision from him, it remains disarming to me. And then my top guy for them is Justin Champagnie. If you get him to actually take threes between that and his rebounding, he could be sort of the consummate complementary player. All due apologies to Johnny Davis. I remain out on him and Patrick Baldwin Jr. I'm not focusing on them. The goal for the Wizards here for me is just you're going to have the information on these guys. Can you identify one or two who absolutely positively should be not part of the next great Wizards team, but on your roster next season?
Yeah, I mean, it's telling that like I'm gonna go up a notch in terms of like figure out if this guy, if who is you're like which flyer like might be an NBA player, and the Wizards have plenty of those. The Wizards also have plenty of guys that are like, I don't know, does this guy should he be here at all? Like, or is he a cornerstone? And like, I think the answer, if you said like, do the Wizards have a cornerstone right now? You would have to say like, well, I don't know. You might mention Koulibaly, who you said is hurt. The other guy is Denny Avdia, who you mentioned he's
The
also
goal
hurt.
should have been to really inflate his late season most improved player case, but that ship apparently has sailed.
Yeah, I think it's he's been listed as day to day. It's a knee. So
At
like
this point, don't
maybe
bring him back. It's just not even worth it.
yeah, he last played on the 14th, and we're recording this on the 20th. So like, why would you bring him back? The reason, Dan, you'd bring him back is I think Avdia has done enough. Like, I'll just give the numbers for this season. He's up to 14 points a game, just under 7 boards, just under 4 assists, shooting shooting threes better, actually not shooting more threes, but 38.8%, making over half of his field goals. So like, to me, he is the closest thing to like, this guy's gonna be a good starter going forward for a long time. Like, I don't know, Tyus Jones is there too, Kuzma's there, but I think what would have been ideal and what would be ideal if Avdia continues to play, which again may not be advisable given like, what are we doing? You might learn or get a better idea of like what kind of cornerstone slash like sure starter is he going to be, because the facilitation moving up is really interesting to me, because you remember like last year we just talked about what a good defender this guy is. Like, oh my god, like he came over billed as like, I don't know, like a cross between like, I don't know, Gallinari and I choose your more defensive minded Euro guy. But
Andre
I think
Karolinko, there you go.
ooh, that's very defensive minded. But I think like what Avdia has done in an abbreviated season, again, like who knows how much value to put on like anything that's happening with the Wizards, let alone in the last like month or so of the season. But like he's done enough to show like you could get creative with how you decide he's going to be used. Like, is he on the
Yeah.
ball a lot going forward? Is the shooting now a thing where he can be like a true secondary facilitator that's like moving around off the ball and hitting threes? Like, is he someone you're going to put on the best offensive player on the other team? Like, I think a year ago at this time, we would have said like, there's like a way for Avdia to be an impact player, and that's to just be the best defender on his team, and just like hopefully he gets by doing the rest of the stuff to stay on the floor. Now it's like, I don't know, there's a half dozen ways I could imagine him being the best player on the Wizards next year. Like there, so it would have been cool, and hopefully, if he plays, you'll get a just Wizards figure out it, to the extent it's possible, given the circumstances, like what version of Denny Avdia is going to best serve us going forward? And then the follow-up question we always have to ask is like, so then what does he need next to him? So I just wanted to focus on someone besides Bilal Coulibaly, because I feel like that's all we ever talk about with the Wizards.
I'm not. I would have found a way to focus on him probably if he didn't have that injury, because we're trying to focus on, yes, it's long-term stuff, but it's also we need to watch it this season.
I'm not
And
going to, hey, can I make a revelation to you? I'm not going to be watching the Wizards the rest of the season. Sorry.
What if Vucevic finally makes his debut?
You're going to have to tip me off. You're going to have to let me know.
Stat padding time. It's guess a player. You want to do 3 each this time?
Let me answer that after I determine if I have at least that many from Mike Hernishin. Let me see here. I haven't even looked at these, so this is going to be new to me too. I've got 1, 2. Oh, we can go more than 3 if you want.
Let's not do that because I am pretty fucking tired.
All right. Well, let me give you this one here.
Let's all. You want to alternate like we did last time?
Sure. And try not to get it on the first clue. So Mike's 14 clue, guess the players. So 13 clues go.
I did see that in the Discord the other day. We were talking about like and you fucked up. Rubik's Gal had the Danny Ainge one that you like so elaborate, and you got it on clue 1 or 2.
One of my finer moments. All right. So let's see. I want to give you a chance here. All right. We're just going to do this. All right. Clue number 1. Technically speaking, I was traded before I was drafted, as 2 days before the 2004 NBA draft, the rights to the pick that became me was traded with Jerry Stackhouse to Dallas for Christian Laettner and Antoine Jameson.
Wait, one more time.
Technically speaking, I was traded before I was drafted, as 2 days before the 04 NBA draft, the rights to the pick that became me was traded with Jerry Stackhouse to Dallas for Christian Laettner and Antoine Jameson.
No, I got nothing.
All right. So I guess this is Dallas is making this pick. As a rookie clue number 2, as a rookie in 2004, I averaged 5.7 points and 2 assists per game with a PER of 14.7. I was second in the league in steals per 48 minutes behind Larry Hughes.
He's on Dallas at this point?
I'm pretty sure that's how I'm reading it. I think that's right.
Devin Harris?
Oh, shit. That's correct.
Is it?
Oh, sorry, Mike. Well, he waited until the second clue to get that one. It is Devin Harris. Good. So what got it for you? Just a Dallas rookie that got steals?
I wasn't even positive that he was a rookie on Dallas, which is why I never would have thought of him for the first clue. So
unbelievable. All right. Well, he won Rookie of the Month in November of 04. But lost more and more playing time as the season progressed. Yeah, because it's weird. I remember Devin Harris like as a net, like when he really was getting numbers. And then I think, doesn't he end up back in, I'm sure Mike will tell us.
He does end up back in Dallas. Where did he make his all-star team? Which team was he on for that?
It's got to be, well, New Jersey, I guess, at the time. Let's see. Improved as a sophomore, taking primary ball handling duties from Jason Terry. That might have got you there too. It was at this time my speed at the point guard position was drawing comparisons to Leandro Barbosa and my good friend Dwayne Wade. Averaged 9 and 3 in my second year, shortened due to injury. But I did play in the team's finals run, so that might have got you there too. Dallas in 06 in the finals. 08 deadline, I was traded with Desanya Diop, Trenton Hassel, Keith Van Horn, Maurice Agerbaum, cash considerations, and 2 first-round picks for Jason Kidd. Also Malik Allen and Antoine Wright, if that helps in any way. First full season with the Nets, career high 47-point game. Next year, I made it to the All-Star game. Traded for after the Nets traded Vince Carter, I was named the team's captain. And then at the 11 deadline, me and rookie Derek Favors are traded to the Jazz for Darren Williams. Forgot about that. That's how Darren Williams gets to the Nets. Remember that. In 12, I was traded to the Hawks for Marvin Williams. Back to Dallas for 5 years before a pit stop in Denver. Back to Dallas. He's the current color commentator for the Mavs. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
Yes. You know what the MVP? Well, is it the MVP? But it's the Loud Rims or the MVP of that broadcast.
The Loud Rims. All right. Well, bang up job by you getting it in 2. Sorry, Mike. I'll try to read the clues more confusingly so Dan doesn't get them so quickly.
Okay, so I will vacillate. You will get 2. I only have submissions from Mike and B Rich. So you'll get the first one from Mike. The second one will be from B Rich, and then you'll get another one from Mike. Clue number 1. I was drafted by the Hawks in 2003.
Okay.
All right. Clue 2. My first 2 seasons, I was a fixture of the rotation, starting 62 of my 142 games I played, but never being much of a scorer.
This isn't Marvin Williams, is it?
It is not.
Okay. 03 by the Hawks, but never a scorer. Started and played a lot. Man, 03.
You might get it with this next clue.
All right, let's hear it.
Clue 3. After my second season, I was traded to the Suns along with 2 first-round picks for Joe Johnson.
Oh. Hawks to the Suns for Joe Johnson. Is that after Joe Johnson shot like 48% from 3 that year?
That's not part of the clue, Grant.
Okay, so Johnson from the Suns to the Hawks. Who goes to the Suns for Joe Johnson? What 2 firsts with this guy gets you Joe Johnson?
Correct.
Man, I feel like I should know this based on that. It's on the Hawks. I don't have it.
Clue number 4. Though drafted as a shooting guard, the Suns made me a truly positionless player, ranging all 5 positions. Because of injuries to players like Kurt Thomas and Amari Stoudemire, I started at center for Phoenix in the 2006 playoffs.
Oh, is this Boris Diaw?
That is correct. Boris
My
Diaw.
guy. I love Boris.
So other clues. Clue 5, I got suspended for an important playoff game against the Spurs because I left the bench to confront Robert Horry about a hard foul. Clue 6, in 2008, me and Raja Bell were traded for Jason Richardson and Jared Dudley, where I was part of Bobcat for 3 years before being waived. I did play in the franchise's first ever playoff game, though. Clue 7, 2 days after getting waived by the Bobcats, I signed with the Spurs for the rest of the season. It changed my career. I re-signed in the offseason and made the finals the next year in 2013. In 2014, I won my first and only ring. And then the 8th and wow, there was 11 clues. 8, it was during my time with the Spurs where Bill Walton actually said this about me. And when you look at XX and what he's done to this franchise, he's changed everything. We celebrate his brilliance. And when you talk to X, you realize what a classical human being he is. It was 201 years ago today. Beethoven Symphony Number 3 in E flat, which escorted in the age of romanticism in music. And when I think of X, I think of Beethoven and the age of romantics. This guy has it all.
Unbelievable, an all-time Walton. I mean, he's everything he says is.
I did not know he said that about Boris Diaw.
That's amazing. Like, how do you think that was? He just? He must have come across that fact about the anniversary of whatever symphony that was, and he's like, "How am I going to work this in to the broadcast?"
He popped a shroom, and he was golden.
He was there.
Very quickly, the final 3 clues. In 2014, I re-signed with the Spurs for 3 years, $22 million. I was traded 2 years later for a prospect who never played in the NBA and then waived by the Jazz. I retired in 2018 on Twitter after a year in my home country. Tony Parker and I are best friends, and I was his best man when he married Eva Longoria.
I love Boris Diaw. Just any clue that involves him. All right. This one was there last week from Mike, but I really want to do this one because I think it's just the right level of difficulty. So are you ready?
No, not anymore. I thought I was.
There are only 6 clues on this one. Clue number 1. I was a lottery pick by the Raptors in the mid 2000s. You want to just
Darrell White?
No.
Mo Peterson.
No, he was the 90s, maybe. Good. You're okay. I'm not going to say you're on the right track, but those are Raptors players, so you sort of are. Clue number 2. Despite being on the all-rookie team, I was traded after my first season to the Bucks for TJ Ford.
Oh. He was on the Raptors as a rookie and then traded to the Bucks for TJ Ford.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Okay. Yeah, the Bucks years are not as memorable for this guy for some reason for me. Clue number 3. In my 3rd year with the Bucks, I averaged a career high 16 points, and according to my then teammate Richard Jefferson, I'm responsible for creating NBA Twitter because of a mid-game tweet. That tweet got me in a heap of trouble with head coach Scott Skiles.
What? Read that? Can you read that back?
Yes. In my 3rd year with the Bucks, I averaged a career high 16 points. Stop. According to my then teammate Richard Jefferson, I'm responsible for creating NBA Twitter because of a mid-game tweet. That tweet got me in a heap of trouble with head coach Scott Skiles.
Is it Jared Bayless?
No. I didn't remember that part either. This might get you
blocked out Richard Jefferson being on the Bucks.
Right? All right. Clue 4. After this season, I signed with the Pistons for 5 years, $40 million, which at the time, that's no joke. I was supposed to pair with Ben Gordon to bring the Pistons into a new era. It didn't happen. My numbers regressed every season in Detroit.
Charlie Villanueva?
That is correct. Very good. What guy was it? The contract?
Yeah, but it was I did not know him and Richard Jefferson were on the Bucks at the same. They're like
The Bucks
wild.
have a lot of guys. Like JJ Redick was on the Bucks. Remember, like and Mike Dunleavy was a Buck for a minute. Like there's all these guys that just were there for. I forgot TJ. Well, I did. TJ Ford was. All I remember about TJ Ford was that like terrible spinal injury or whatever that was.
All I remember about him is the shorts.
Just the giant shorts. What you would have 1,000,000% gotten it. In 2010, the next clue, I tweeted out that Kevin Garnett called me a cancer patient. You remember that?
Oh yeah, I would have.
Not KG's finest moment during a game. Something I took great offense to as someone who has alopecia. Garnett and Doc Rivers responded that what was said was that I was cancerous to the team and the league as a whole, because like, somehow that's better. I'm not sure which is more offensive, to be honest. Mike says that is correct. Both are terrible. After my tenure in Detroit flamed out, I finished my career with the Mavs. Forgot Charlie. I kind of remember Charlie Villanueva on the Mavs, maybe a little bit. So that's 2 for 2 for you.
Are you ready to get into the mind of a psychopath?
I'm not getting any readier.
Be rich. Clue number 1. I was drafted outside the lottery in 1995. Only Kevin Garnett and Rasheed Wallace finished above me in career win shares.
Outside the lottery, 95. Finished above me in career win shares. Wait, Kevin Garnett and who?
Rasheed Wallace.
All right. I don't have it. Go ahead.
Clue 2. I finished top 20 in MVP voting 3 times in my career, was a 2-time All-Star, and reached the playoffs the last 10 seasons of my career. That's kind of wild. So top 20 in MVP voting 3 times, but only an All-Star twice.
Yeah, what the hell? So like a really good player that was on multiple good teams for the last 10 years of his career. I'm trying to think of that 95 draft. Who else is even in that? Garnett's the fifth.
There was an ending to this clue. I retired a Celtic. I apologize. That's part of it.
Okay. Retired a Celtic. 95 draft, which is Garnett, Wallace. Who the fuck else is this? It's like McDyess in that draft.
I don't know if he's in that draft, but he's not the answer.
No. I'm trying to think. I think McDyess was like the number 2 pick. If I'm thinking of the right draft, which would be like Joe Smith, McDyess. I don't know who the third guy. Okay, go ahead. What's the next clue?
Clue number 3. In Iron Man, I averaged 39.7 minutes per game across 9 seasons on the team I'm most associated with. 3 seasons out of 4 during that stretch, I led the NBA in minutes played. There is a sub clue to clue number 3 as well.
Is this Gerald Wallace?
No, it is not.
Oh shit! Felt really good.
Fun fact: my college coach also recognized my elite skill as I averaged 37 minutes a game in my senior year of college.
Gerald Wallace is a terrible guess. I apologize for that one. That was 95. He was not in the 95 draft. Okay, so this guy's playing a ton. Drafted in 95 outside the lottery. 2 All-Star games. Finished with the Celtics. That's tough. A lot of guys finished with the Celtics. I don't have it.
Clue number 4 of 5, by the way. So you're getting down the crunch time. In my age 28 season, I averaged 46.6 minutes per game in the playoffs. Don Nelson was a fucking madman. In 56 playoff games under him, I averaged 41.4 minutes.
Okay. So this could be a Knick, a Celtic, a Mav. Wait, which season? Did it say which season in the playoffs?
His age 28 season didn't give you a year.
So 95. So let's just say 01, 02, 03. That's got to be a Mav. Michael Finley.
Correct.
Okay.
Whew. He's like one of the best players that everyone just forgets existed. And the clue about him being a top 20 in MVP voting 3 times is wild. The final clue on this, a 6'7" wing. I teamed up with NBA legends Charles Barkley, Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Garnett, Steve Nash, Tim Duncan, Rasheed Wallace, Manu Ginobili, Robert Horry, and yep, you guessed it, Greg Buckner.
Well, because he's played with those guys. All right. So what team? I guess he's most associated with the Mavericks.
I would think so. It could be the
Yeah.
Mavericks, maybe the Spurs.
I remember Phoenix. I remember because I think I remember. How does he get from Phoenix to Dallas? Anyway, okay, all right, yeah, got it. Michael Finley, what a good player. I deserved more than 2 All-Star games. It feels like. All right, you ready for another one?
Yes, sir.
Let's see. I got 2 choices here. All right, I'm going to give you the newest one. Clue number 1. I was drafted in the 2nd round in 2000, sandwiched between Brian Cardinal and Olumide Oyedeji. How's your knowledge?
Year?
2000 second rounders. Clue number 2. Only playing in 6 games as a rookie on an Eastern Conference contender, my coach made it a priority to play me more as a sophomore, as 2 all-star teammates of mine had my back. This led to a scoring jump from 2.2 points up to 11.4 in 67 games, but we missed the playoffs. Started 8 of those 67 games as a sophomore.
I got nothing.
Okay. Clue number 3. In my 3rd year, I played all 82 games, starting 14 and improving my scoring again. The team made the playoffs, but failed to make it out of the first round. So I guess that'd be 02.
2nd round.
You don't even have a team yet. That's the problem.
Once you get I'm not too up on 2nd round picks from the year 2000.
He's in the Eastern Conference, so can only be 15 teams. Clue number 4. After this season, as a part of a roster refresh, here we go, I was rewarded the starting shooting guard position after Ray Allen was traded for Desmond Mason and Gary Payton. The team's faith in me was rewarded with an all-star campaign. I averaged 21.7 points on 47% shooting with 44% shooting from deep. We made the playoffs, but we were swept.
Michael Redd?
Correct. Good job. That I think you needed to get it there. Although you've got, Mike's just piling the clues on. Clue 5, we missed the playoffs the next year and I hit free agency. This is where the Michael Redd story starts to turn sad, I think. I was rumored to want to play in my home state with the Cavs alongside a still young LeBron. That's how old this clue is. We're talking about a guy drafted in 2000 that wanted to go play with LeBron at the time. Let's see. I opted to stay for 6 years and $91 million. Holy shit, I forgot about that. My first purchase with the money from this contract was a church. Following season, I set the franchise record for points in a game that stood until the 23-24 season when Giannis broke it. However, when I set the record, no one tried to steal the ball and started fighting in the locker room. It's clue 7. I started dealing with nagging injuries, especially with my knees. In 2009, I tore both my MCL and ACL in my left knee. I returned early in 2010, but I retore the same MCL and ACL. God, I forgot about that. In 2011, I finished out my career playing 51 games with the Suns. Those 51 games were only 10 games less than I'd combined to play in the previous 3 seasons. I also retired having not made the playoffs since 2006. Oh my God. Here, this is great knowledge. Final clue, which I'm sure you would have gotten it on this one if you hadn't gotten it by now. In Nelly's song, Heart of a Champion, my name was included among NBA stars and legends such as Magic, Shaq, AI, and Kareem, as well as NFL stars Ray Lewis, Peyton Manning, and Julius Peppers. I am the only player mentioned that did not make their league's Hall of Fame. But immortalized forever by Nelly.
I would not have gotten that, by the way.
No,
if that was the clue I needed to get it on, I would not have gotten
That's the clue you start with, I feel like, because that would just put you completely on tilt. There's I should have read them in reverse order.
Okay, I'm going to be personally offended if you don't get this one correct.
Don't do that.
Clue number 1. I was drafted 11th overall out of Tennessee in 1993 by Detroit. A program legend, my number 20 jersey is retired in Knoxville.
Allen Houston.
Correct. Wow. I'm sorry, Mike. Clue 2 was I competed in the 1994 dunk contest in which I headbutted the ball to myself. This is back when the dunk contest sucked the first time. Clue 3, despite everything, 14 points per game as a sophomore, 19.7 points per game in year 3, Detroit opted not to extend me, and I hit free agency, signing with the Knicks and immediately competing for and winning the starting shooting guard role from John Starks in 96. Clue 4, known as an Iron Man from 96 until 2002. I missed no more than 5 games in a single season, averaging no less than 16 points per game, with my career high being in 2002, 2003, 22.5, starting all 82 games that year. Clue 5, while he was my head coach, Jeff Van Gundy once parked his car too close to our team plane. As the plane was taxiing, the exhaust threw Van Gundy's car into the air and it landed on my Mercedes. I was not happy. I did not remember that. Did you?
No, that's news to me.
Nice job, Mike. Clue 6, in 2003, 2004, injuries started to catch up to me as I missed 32 games with a knee injury. Clue 7, my last NBA game came in January 2005 in a 17-point loss to the Raptors. This is only of note because allegedly before the game, Raptors superfan Nav Bashia told me, blank, you are getting older now, and as a result are no longer as effective as you once were. A prophecy and a well-mannered shit talking if there was ever one. Yeah, if it was phrased exactly like that.
Criticism.
Yeah, that's like the most level-headed, cordial smack talk of all time.
I don't feel you have the same skills that you once did.
That's Pert Hapley criticizing you.
Yeah, right. Oh man, are there more clues? Those are good clues.
No, that was it on the clues. This was great. So send guess players, join the Discord if you want, or don't. Even if you don't want, join the fucking Discord. Come on.
Do you remember the Allen Houston shot that from the free throw line? Like,
do you know what I remember against the Heat?
Yeah, the one that like it rattled, it bounces up and falls in. I can see him like willing it to fall.
I jumped out of my skin when that happened. And you know what I remember even more about that shot? I mean, that Knicks team was that 98-99 Knicks team was just incredible. But afterwards, so I think it was Terry Porter. There was 0.4 or 0.8 seconds left, caught the ball like behind half court. He like pivoted, dribbled, and got the shot off. And I remember Jeff Van Gundy in the post-game interview saying, only in Miami can you pivot, dribble, and get a shot off in under half a second. It was so
just never satisfied. I gotta have a gripe. That's so on brand. Yeah, that shot lives in my memory. I don't know why. That's such a weirdly iconic shot. I guess because Knicks Heat was just such a there weren't a lot of nationally televised games then.
Knicks Heat, wasn't that the same year too? The Larry Johnson 4-point play against the Pacers.
Was it 2000, right? It was I know the Larry Johnson one was 2000.
Oh, okay, then it was a different year, I think, because I think that was Houston was 99, I believe.
The short-lived, remember the Larry Johnson celebration where he made the LJ thing? Oh man.
And then wasn't there like a tribute? Chris Childs like made the L after he did something. There was just
Chris Childs. Those ones, and then I'm pretty sure. Although you never know with stuff like this because it's so long ago, I'm pretty sure I was watching the Reggie Miller 8 points 9 seconds game like in real time. Do you remember watching that one? You would have been like, that would have been pretty young.
No, I think I was too young for that one.
I think that's 98.
I still can't. I can't watch the highlights of it though. It does pain me. I'm not gonna lie.
It was. I remember. I think I loved Reggie Miller. Like he was my favorite player for a while. Like just after that, because that was like so unbelievable.
I know he's employed by our parent company. I feel like he catches too much shit for his commentating because even if you don't agree with his points or the things that he says, he's one of the call them older heads or guys from a previous generation who genuinely seems to still love the game of basketball.
Oh, no,
and does not receive nearly enough credit for that.
And it's weird that stands out. Like he's actually like still enthusiastic about the young players, like all too happy to see like his records keep falling. Like he has no problem with it.
Yeah, and it's just like so. Like I appreciate, and maybe it's because is the bar too low for that? I don't. But he just like genuinely appreciates and loves the game, and I'm going to. I compliment that excitability, just especially when we have just the analysis that we get from certain other former players.
Yeah. That's a good spot to end on, I think. Just a positive get out moment. Everybody, thank you, especially this time for the guest of players. Again, as Dan said, if you would like to contribute to those, and if you want to, if you can work in Greg Buckner, that's more than likely going to get your guest of player picked, all things being equal. Join our Discord. Links to do that are in the YouTube and podcast description. That's also where you can find links to merch. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies. Share our podcast however you're consuming them, whether that's, you know, give them thumbs up on YouTube. It's however you can goose the algorithm, get us in front of more eyes, get us heard by more ears. That's always very helpful, and we appreciate it. It's going to do it for tonight. As always, we close with a shout out to the one and only Frank Ntilikina and an apology to Jarrett Allen.